The first thing I remember from that day is not the cafe, not even her face. It's the sound of that pen scratching against the napkin. My hand was shaking so badly that the letters looked like they'd been carved by someone on the edge of madness. Don't come home. For words that felt like dropping a grenade and waiting for the explosion. I didn't plan any of this. I didn't even plan to see her. I was there because I needed to get out of the apartment, our apartment, before I tore it apart. We'd been cold with each other for weeks, but I kept telling myself it was just stress, or maybe I wasn't trying hard enough. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. And that day, I decided to stop pretending. When I walked into that cafe, the universe decided to stop pretending too. There she was, my wife, Grace, laughing with some man like I'd never existed. It wasn't the kind of laugh you give a friend. It was sharp, almost electric, like every part of her face remembered how to light up, just not for me. I didn't shout. I didn't even breathe. I just stood there, gripping the pen the cashier had handed me like it was the only thing holding me together. I walked over, slipped the napkin onto their table, and for a split second, I saw her soul leave her body. Her smile died instantly. Her hand jerked back from his, and the man's eyes darted to me like I was some lunatic ready to burn the place down. I turned around and walked out before she could say a single word. I didn't want to hear excuses. I didn't want to know how long this had been happening. I wanted the silence. That heavy, suffocating silence where you can feel your whole life collapsing, but you're too numb to scream. Driving home, I thought she would call me, or text me, or something. She didn't. And that's when the anger started to bubble. If she thought I was going to sit there, waiting for her like some idiot, she was wrong. But the thing is, I had no idea just how wrong I was about everything. Because when she finally did react to that napkin, she didn't do what any sane person would do. She did something so twisted that I'm still trying to figure out if she's the woman I married or just a stranger wearing her face. When I got home that day, I expected the doorbell to ring within minutes. I imagined her pounding on the door, crying, maybe begging for me to listen. I waited. Nothing. Not a single call, not even a text. For hours, I just sat on the edge of the couch, staring at my phone like it might explode with answers. But there was nothing. Just the suffocating quiet of an empty apartment and my own thoughts tearing me apart. By midnight, I started pacing. Part of me was furious. How dare she not even try to explain? But another part of me, the weaker, pathetic part, was terrified. What if she wasn't coming back at all? What if that cafe moment wasn't just a mistake, but the truth? I hated myself for even caring, but the silence was eating me alive. At around 2 a.m., I heard something outside, not footsteps, but the sound of a car door slamming. I rushed to the window like some desperate fool. It wasn't her car. It was a black sedan I didn't recognize, parked on the street. A man got out. Not the guy from the cafe, someone else. He walked up to my front door and just left something on the porch before driving off. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. When I opened the door, I found a paper bag. Inside was a single note, written in her handwriting. "You'll regret this." No explanation. No apology. Just those 4 words that felt like a curse. There was something else in the bag, too. A keychain I had given her for our first anniversary, the one shaped like a little silver compass. I don't even know why, but that broke me more than anything. I didn't sleep that night. I sat there, staring at that keychain, thinking about how it used to mean home, and now it just felt like a weapon. Was she trying to scare me? Was she just angry? Or was this something darker? The next day, I decided I couldn't just sit and wait. I had to know where she was, what she was doing. So I did something I never thought I would do. I started digging into her phone records, her emails, anything I could access. And what I found in her inbox wasn't just a hint of betrayal. It was the first thread of something much bigger, something I wish I'd never pulled on. I didn't even know what I was looking for when I opened her laptop. Grace isn't careless. She's the type who deletes junk emails instantly and clears her browsing history like she's hiding state secrets. But she had left the laptop on our dining table the day before, and when I turned it on, I found something that didn't fit. There was a separate email account logged in, one I didn't recognize. The username was strange, just a random mix of letters and numbers, but the emails were all from the past few months. The subject lines made my stomach twist. Our meeting, the plan, no one can know. At first, I thought maybe it was some spam account, but then I opened one. And there she was, Grace, my wife, talking to someone named Nate, like they had a life together I didn't even know existed. I read every word with my heart pounding in my throat. It wasn't just that they were meeting at cafes. It wasn't just that they were close. No, what hit me hardest was how she wrote about me. I was the burden, the guy who wouldn't understand, the man she was done pretending with. I didn't even realize I was crying until my tears smudged the screen. But then, at the bottom of one email, I saw something that turned my fear into raw panic. A line from Nate. Just make sure he stays out of the way when we take care of it. Take care of it? Take care of what? Was this about me? Was this about our house, our accounts, something bigger? My mind was spinning in 1,000 directions. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe I was overthinking. But there was something in the tone of those emails, something that felt calculated, cold. It wasn't just an affair. It felt like a plan. I couldn't stop reading, even when it hurt. The more I read, the less I recognized Grace. She wasn't the woman I married. She sounded like a stranger, someone dangerous. I took screenshots of everything, sent them to my phone, and then sat there staring at the laptop as if it had just whispered a death sentence. I couldn't confront her yet. I needed more proof. But while I was sitting there, debating what to do, my phone buzzed. A text from Grace. If you go through my things again, you'll regret it. I swear to God, I hadn't told her anything. How did she know? Was she watching me? Did she know I was reading those emails? My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. It felt like I was already caught in a game I didn't even understand, and she was 2 steps ahead. That's when I decided I couldn't just wait for her to come home. I had to find Nate. I had to know who this man was, and why they were talking about me like I was a problem they needed to handle. I had never been the type of guy to spy on someone. I've always been the let's talk it out type, even if it meant I sounded like a broken record begging for peace. But this wasn't just about an affair anymore. The line in Nate's email, make sure he stays out of the way, had planted a thought I couldn't shake. What if this was more than cheating? What if they were planning something that could destroy me? Or worse. I spent the entire night obsessively scrolling through every trace of Nate I could find. His name was buried in the email headers and signatures, but there was enough to start digging. He wasn't on social media, or at least not under that name. But I eventually found a trail of invoices and job listings that connected to some sort of consulting work. It was vague and shady, like he didn't want anyone to really know what he did. My gut told me I wasn't just dealing with some random guy who stole my wife's attention. This man had a purpose. By morning, I decided I needed to see him face to face. I used the calendar app on Grace's laptop to track their meetings. One was set for that afternoon, at the same cafe where I had caught them before. I parked 2 blocks away, my car trembling under the heat of my own nerves, and waited. When I saw him, I almost didn't believe it. He wasn't what I expected. He looked normal, almost too normal. Early 40s, sharp black jacket, clean cut, like someone you'd hire to negotiate a business deal. But there was something in the way he carried himself, something cold and calculated, like he was always assessing the room for threats. Grace showed up 20 minutes later. I stayed in the car, hands glued to the steering wheel, heart hammering like a drum. They didn't sit by the window this time. They went to the back, where no one could see them. I wanted to storm in, but something in me told me to stay still and watch. So I did. When they left an hour later, I decided to follow him. Not hurt him. I thought I could be quiet, invisible, but my anxiety was screaming so loudly in my head that I'm surprised they didn't hear me. He drove a silver SUV and I followed, my hands so sweaty I could barely keep hold of the wheel. He didn't go home, at least not at first. He went to a small office building on the edge of town. No signs, no company name, just tinted windows and a locked glass door. I waited for him to go inside, then parked a block away and walked up like I belonged there. I peeked through the window, but all I could see were boxes, stacks of them, like whatever they were doing in there wasn't meant to be seen by anyone. Then I saw something that made my stomach turn. Through the reflection of the glass, I could see Nate standing inside, looking right at me. He smiled. Not a friendly smile. A smile that said, I know you're here. I bolted back to my car, heart pounding so hard I thought I was going to pass out. As I drove away, my phone buzzed with a new message. No name, just a number I didn't recognize. It read, you should stop looking, Elliot. For your own good. I almost drove off the road. How did he get my number? Was Grace giving him updates? Were they working together against me? Every nerve in my body screamed to call the police, but what would I even say? Hi, My wife might be cheating and also planning something sinister with a guy who just texted me a threat. They'd laugh me out of the station. That night, I didn't sleep. Every creak in the house felt like someone was breaking in. I couldn't shake the image of his smile. Calm, like he knew something I didn't. And when I checked Grace's location on her phone, yes, I was that desperate. I noticed something that made my blood run cold. She wasn't at her friend's house, where she said she'd be. She was at the same office building with Nate. At 2 a.m. I can't explain the kind of madness that crawls into your brain when you watch your wife's little blinking location sitting in the middle of a place she should never be, especially at 2 a.m. My hands were trembling so badly, I almost dropped the phone. I sat there in the dark, the glow from the screen making my living room feel like some interrogation room. Every rational part of me said, wait until morning. Don't do anything stupid. But my chest was boiling with something that didn't feel like me anymore. So I grabbed my keys and drove. It was raining again, that cold, sticky drizzle that makes every streetlight look like it's bleeding. The whole way there, I rehearsed what I'd say to her if I found her. I imagined yelling, begging, crying. But when I pulled up near that office building, all of it just drained out of me. The SUV was there. His car, parked right in front like it owned the night. But Grace's car? It wasn't anywhere. I didn't know what to think. Did she get dropped off? Was she inside with him? Was she lying about everything I'd ever believed about her? I sat there for what felt like hours, every shadow on the street morphing into a threat. Finally, I couldn't take it. I got out of the car and walked up to the building. My heart was slamming so hard I thought my ribs would crack. I expected the door to be locked. It wasn't. It creaked open like someone had been expecting me. Inside, the place didn't even look like an office. It was half empty, with folding tables pushed to the walls and those same stacks of boxes I'd seen before. No signs, no furniture, no normal life anywhere. Just this weird, sterile emptiness. Then I heard it. Footsteps, coming from the hallway in the back. I froze like a deer in headlights, every muscle in my body screaming to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The footsteps got closer, slow and deliberate. And then Grace appeared. My Grace. She wasn't surprised to see me. She didn't even look shocked. She just stopped in the hallway, arms crossed, and said in this flat voice I'd never heard before, "You shouldn't be here, Elliot." I can't even describe what that felt like. It was like looking at someone who wore my wife's face, but wasn't her anymore. I asked her what she was doing there, what Nate was to her, what the hell was happening. And she just stared at me, silent, like she was calculating every word I might say. Finally, she sighed and said, "If you keep pushing, you're going to regret everything. You need to let this go." I wanted to scream, to grab her and demand the truth. Instead, all that came out was this pathetic, shaky voice asking, "Do you love him?" She didn't answer. She just walked past me, brushing my shoulder like I was some stranger on the street, and left the building. I stood there alone, feeling like I'd just stepped off a cliff. But then something caught my eye, a box half open on one of the tables. Inside were papers, dozens of them, all with my name on them. Bank statements, insurance policies, things I'd never shown anyone but her. And right there, under a stack of envelopes, was a folder marked with today's date. I picked it up, and my blood went cold. It wasn't just paperwork. It was a plan, a detailed breakdown of my accounts, my assets, even my schedule, down to the hour. It was like someone was mapping out my life to erase me from it. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about cheating anymore. Whatever Grace and Nate were doing, I wasn't just an inconvenience. I was a target. I didn't take the folder right away. For a solid minute, I just stared at it, frozen, like it might explode if I touched it. My name was on nearly every page inside. Our joint accounts, my credit cards, my medical records. There were even photocopies of my signature from old documents, like someone was practicing forging it. And there, near the bottom of the stack, was something I can never unsee. A mock-up of what looked like a life insurance claim form. My name was at the top. Grace was listed as the sole beneficiary. My chest felt like it was collapsing. I don't remember breathing. I don't even remember my own footsteps as I backed out of the building and stumbled to my car. I sat there gripping the folder like it was the only thing keeping me alive. My mind was racing, trying to connect the dots. Was this why she'd been so cold to me lately? Was this why she was suddenly meeting Nate behind my back? I kept telling myself I had to be wrong. This had to be some misunderstanding. But then, the thought crept in, what if it wasn't? What if Grace wasn't planning to just leave me, but to take everything from me? And I didn't even want to finish that thought. I drove home in a daze, half expecting her to already be there waiting, ready to explain or maybe to confront me. But the apartment was dark and silent. I dropped the folder on the kitchen table and paced the living room like a caged animal. Every creak of the floorboards, every hum of the refrigerator sounded like a warning. I felt paranoid, but the kind of paranoid that comes from seeing too much truth. I called her. No answer. I texted her. We need to talk. Now. No reply. Then I did something I'd never imagined myself doing. I called her best friend, Lily, who has never really liked me. She sounded groggy and annoyed, but when I asked if she knew where Grace was, there was this long pause. Elliot, maybe you shouldn't be looking for her right now, she said, her voice tight, like she was holding something back. I think you need to let her handle things. Handle what? When I pushed her for details, she just said, it's better if you don't know. And then she hung up. That was the moment I realized I was alone in this. I couldn't trust Grace. I couldn't trust her friends. And if Nate was really what I thought he was, I couldn't trust anyone. I spent the next few hours going through the folder, page by page, looking for anything that might explain what they were planning. Buried under the documents, I found a USB drive taped to the inside of the folder. My stomach dropped. It felt too deliberate, like someone had wanted me to find it, or maybe like someone had made a mistake. I plugged it into my laptop, and what I saw made my blood turn to ice. There were photos of me, not just random snapshots. These were surveillance photos. Me walking to work, me at the grocery store, me sitting on our own balcony, drinking coffee. Some were taken at night, from angles I couldn't even place. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped the laptop. It wasn't just Grace. Someone had been following me, watching me. At that moment, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number, the same one Nate had used before. You really shouldn't have looked in that folder, Elliot. I nearly dropped the phone. My mind was racing. Were they watching me even now? Was there a camera somewhere in the apartment? I grabbed my keys, threw on a jacket, and left. I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew I had to get out. As I drove through the empty streets, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about betrayal or cheating anymore. Grace and Nate were orchestrating something far bigger, and I was right in the center of it. The worst part? I still didn't know why. I didn't plan on confronting Nate that night. I didn't even know where I was going when I pulled out of the driveway, my heart pounding like I was driving straight into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But every turn of the wheel brought me closer to one clear thought. I couldn't keep hiding. I couldn't just sit back while Grace and this man, this stranger, played whatever twisted game they were playing with my life. I had to face him, even if it terrified me. I drove back to that office building, the one with the dark windows and the too clean parking lot that felt like a trap. It was just past 3 a.m., and the entire street was deserted, the only sounds the distant hum of the highway and the crackle of the rain hitting my windshield. Nate's SUV was still parked there. He was inside. I could feel it, like some shadow lurking behind those walls. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, rehearsing what I'd say. I imagined kicking down the door, demanding answers, maybe even threatening him if I had to. But when I finally stepped out of the car and walked up to the door, every ounce of bravado drained out of me. The glass door reflected my own pale, shaking face back at me. I was scared, pathetic even, but I pushed the door open anyway. The place was quiet, too quiet. My footsteps echoed as I made my way to the hallway where I'd seen Grace the night before. I called out his name, my voice cracking in the silence. No answer. I kept going, my palms slick with sweat, until I reached a door at the very end. It was slightly ajar, and the glow of a lamp spilled out into the hall. When I pushed it open, he was sitting there. Nate. Calm. Relaxed. Like he'd been waiting for me. You really don't know when to stop, do you? He said, his tone low but sharp enough to cut through me. He didn't move, didn't even flinch, just stared at me with this unsettling grin that made my skin crawl. What are you doing with my wife? I asked, my voice shaking. What are you planning? He leaned back in his chair, almost amused. Elliot, you really think this is about your marriage? He let out a small laugh that felt cruel and deliberate. You're in the middle of something you don't understand. And if you keep digging, you won't like what you find. I tried to press him, demanded to know why there were surveillance photos of me, why Grace's name was all over those documents. He didn't answer. Instead, He stood up slowly, walked over to me, and leaned in close enough that I could smell his cologne. Cold, clinical, like something you'd wear to a funeral. "Do yourself a favor," he whispered. "Take what little life you have left and walk away." Grace already made her choice. Something in me snapped. Maybe it was the way he said her name, like she belonged to him now. Maybe it was the threat buried in his voice. I shoved him, hard, and for a split second, I saw something flicker in his eyes, a flash of anger, the kind that could burn the world down. But he didn't hit back. He just smiled that infuriating smile and said, "You'll regret that." I turned and stormed out before I did something I couldn't take back. My hands were shaking as I gripped the steering wheel, my mind a chaotic storm of fear and rage. I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't trust Grace anymore. I couldn't trust anyone. Whatever this was, I was alone in it, and the only way to survive was to figure out the truth before they destroyed me completely. When I got home, I found my front door slightly open. My breath caught in my throat. I pushed it open slowly, every muscle in my body tensed for whatever I might find. The lights were off, but on the kitchen table, in the exact spot where I'd left the folder, was a new note. Just one sentence, written in that same cold handwriting I'd seen before. "You should have listened." I didn't sleep that night. I sat there on the couch with every light in the apartment turned on, clutching the folder and the USB drive like they were my only shield. But as the night dragged on and the shadows of dawn crept in, one question kept tearing through me. If this wasn't just about an affair, then what the hell were they really planning? I didn't think I would make it to morning. Every sound in the apartment made me jump. Every creak of the floorboards felt like someone was watching me. But as the first sunlight bled through the blinds, something inside me shifted. I was done being scared. I was done being the weak, trembling man they wanted me to be. If Grace and Nate thought they could destroy me, they had underestimated just how much I had left to lose, and how hard I would fight to get my life back. I called in sick at work and spent the next few hours combing through the USB drive again. I was searching for anything that might give me leverage, anything that could make sense of what they were planning. And then I found it. A series of emails buried in an archive folder, ones I hadn't noticed before. They weren't between Grace and Nate, but between Nate and someone else. The messages were full of vague, threatening language, references to deals and payouts, and using her as leverage. That was when it clicked. Grace wasn't the mastermind. She wasn't plotting against me. She was caught up in something dangerous, something Nate was using her for. As much as my pride screamed to let her burn for betraying me, something deeper, the part of me that had loved her for years, wouldn't let me walk away. I had to get her out. I did something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. I called the police. I handed them everything. The folder, the USB drive, the photos. At first, they didn't take me seriously. I was just some nervous husband ranting about his wife's mysterious friend. But when they saw the financial documents and the surveillance photos, their tone changed. They told me to stay put, that they'd handle it. That night, Grace came home. For the first time in weeks, she looked scared, not angry. She didn't yell or deny anything. She just stood there in the doorway, eyes wide, and whispered, "You have no idea what he's capable of." I told her everything I'd found, about the emails, the life insurance, the threats. She broke down right there on the living room floor, sobbing like she was unraveling. It turned out Nate had been blackmailing her for months, using information she didn't even know he had. He'd convinced her that I was in danger if she didn't cooperate, twisting her loyalty and fear into something that looked like betrayal. She swore she never wanted to hurt me, that she was trying to find a way out, but didn't know how. The police arrested Nate 2 days later. He had a history of scams, extortion, and worse, things I don't even want to write here. When they took him away, I felt this weight lift off my chest, like I could breathe again for the first time. Grace and I were not magically fixed. There's still a lot of pain, a lot of trust to rebuild. But when I saw her sitting across from me at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee like it was a lifeline, I realized I still wanted to fight for us. Maybe I'm a fool. Maybe love makes you foolish. But after everything, I couldn't just throw it away. We decided to leave the city for a while, just to start fresh somewhere quiet. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in weeks, I don't feel like I'm waiting for disaster. I feel like I have a chance. And sometimes, that's all you need, a chance.